Hey TechKnowStuds, now let's get into distributed blockchain and decentralization. With the introduction of blockchain and proof of work, we're now able to decentralize record keeping, but still have an integrity. We haven't been able to really do that in the past. Everything had to have a single source of truth and a single entity controlling that. Well, now we're able to distribute that, and so let's take a look at what that looks like. In the past, we've really had to rely on centralization. Currency is a good example of this. So we've had to rely on entities such as governments to make sure that they manage our currency correctly. We've also had to put a lot of trust in things like banks. When you put your money into a bank, you have to trust that bank. And they monitor that. And they have a single source. Their databases are the single source of truth for your money. So if they move your money into another person's account, really it's that bank that has sole control over that. That's centralization. And it's from an entity standpoint. When I put it into a bank, I'm putting it into that centralized entity. But it's also from a technology standpoint. They have certain servers that they are going to say that that is their single point of truth, and it's going to hold that data. And so that is centralization, is both from a data and from a entity standpoint. So the concept of decentralization is to take the power away from any single entity or any single data source. And so here's an example of how we do decentralization, where we have many different servers and they're keeping the track of the data separately. And they have a mechanism, a way to make sure that they're all coordinated with each other to make sure that they have accurate information. Okay, so here's the really cool part about how all of this works. So what we have here in this example right here is we have 4 different servers that have this distributed blockchain. And each one of these has everything, all of the data, all of the blocks. These are the committed blocks right here. So they all have information about all the committed blocks right there. And as information comes in, or transactions come in, or new data comes in, it gets distributed to each one of these servers. So now what's going to happen is they're starting to create what the next block is going to look like. And they're filling in that data portion of it with that information. And then maybe there's a certain amount of transactions that it can hold. Maybe it can hold 2,000 different transactions, or 2,400 transactions, or maybe it's 10,000 transactions, or maybe it's 100,000 transactions, whatever is determined by the protocol that they're using. So it's going to take in that information. Now, here's the cool part. Once it takes in that information and hits that certain point in which it says, okay, we're ready, then what it does is it starts going to work. Here's the work part of proof of work. It starts going to work on figuring out what nonce value is going to give them the proper hash. That is the hash meeting the certain criteria they're looking for. Maybe it's 4 zeros. So it's going to keep trying those nonces until it finds the proper number of zeros at the beginning of it and says, okay, I've got it. Each one of these devices is doing that same thing. So one of these devices is going to get there first. And once that device gets there first, it's going to say, oh, I've got it. I'm going to calculate out that nonce value, give it to everyone else. All the other devices then are going to receive that and say, oh yeah, you know, and of course their calculation is very quick because they have that nonce value, so they can pretty quickly put it into the algorithm and realize, okay, yes, you've got it. You are the winner. So therefore, we're all going to commit this new block with the nonce value that this server came up with. And now they're all on the same page. They all have the same number of blocks and they all have the same information and everything is good to go. And there doesn't need to be a centralized control over all of this.